Even the most capable leaders have moments of deep self-doubt.
Yeah.
Maybe it shows up as second guessing, over explaining, or even chasing approval. But here's the truth. When insecurity drives our leadership, we often trade clarity for performance and connection for control. The real risk isn't insecurity itself, it's leading from it unconsciously. Insecurity doesn't mean that we're unqualified, otherwise, we'd all be unqualified.
That's right.
It means that we're human. To be human is to experience insecurity.
Yeah.
And I would say, in particular, as we're venturing into new skills, new domains of growth and development, we're taking on new opportunities. We are absolutely going to come face to face with insecurity. It's easy to get stuck trying to prove ourselves instead of leading from confidence. And that's where, for us, one of our core tools, the EQ matrix, comes in, especially as it relates to self-awareness. The more we name what's driving us, the more power we have to shift it. One of our key phrases in our world is, you can't change what you can't see.
That's right. That's right. It's so good. I think one of the most powerful things that I have found in coaching individuals around this idea of imposter syndrome is the reality that everybody experiences it, especially those of us that are high achievers that are constantly learning, growing, and pushing into new ground, right?
Yeah.
Easy, if we want to stay stuck, if we want to stay comfortable, we probably could protect ourselves most of the time from experiencing insecurity, imposter syndrome. But when we're growing and learning, this is a normal part of the experience. So let's talk about what it looks like in the moment. Okay. So when you feel that imposter syndrome kick in, or you're suddenly find yourself trying to double down on your own credibility, we've all been there. What's the move, Eric? What do we do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for our listeners, and I'm sure, Don, you have a million examples as well. I just want to be able to say, every time I go in to meet with a prospective client, I have to battle insecurity. If I'm working with leaders I've not worked with before, industries I've not played in before, the size of business I've not engaged with before, I feel that kick in. If I'm going to a party and I don't know a lot of people, right? Anytime we're venturing into uncharted territory, we are bound to experience some level of insecurity. Do I have what it takes? Am I good enough to get something done, or do I belong here? Whatever those key core questions are, those are going to come up. And I think insecurity tends to hijack how we show up.
That's right.
Let me spin it this way. I often talk to our clients through the lens of, in any environment that we show up to, are we postured as givers or are we postured as takers? And what I mean by taking is, if we go into an environment and we feel insecure at any level, we're likely going to try and make ourselves feel secure by taking from the environment around us. We take when we're leveraging conversations, we're name dropping, we're self-promoting as an attempt to make ourselves feel better. That's not serving the environment.
Right.
That is an attempt to serve our own ego, our own pride, to make ourselves feel safe and secure again. And it's crazy how often I'm in any environment and I can watch how people are interacting with others, and you can see them taking from the other people around them. And then there's the giving posture. Giving is when we are feeling secure internally. And so now we're free to give of ourselves to the environment around us. We're free to serve other people. We're free to consider what's in their best interest. How do I help you? How do I empower you? And I think we would all agree that the best leaders operate more often as givers than takers.
Correct.
And so I think when we feel this insecurity, I think our listeners can really hone in on this. And what do you connect with most? Sometimes we shrink back, right? We withdraw from the opportunity because we're afraid we don't have what it takes. Sometimes we overcompensate, right? We start overswinging. Either way, we stop leading from authenticity. And we're going to come back to that in just a moment, because what is authenticity, right? The way we deal with imposter syndrome is by heading straight into it through the skills of honesty, humility, and self-love, which that's, when we talk about self-awareness, those are the 3 core skills that we push our clients to learn. We reconnect through these core skills to our authentic selves and get to play our cards and let the chips fall where they may. We can't control outcomes. I can't guarantee that when I show up to meet with a prospective client that I have a winning hand, that I'm going to get that contract. I can't guarantee that the people I engage with at a party are going to like me. I can't guarantee that when I'm in a coaching session that I'm going to have what I need in that moment to unlock or help somebody solve a problem. But we can control who we show up as and what we bring to the table.
Yes.
And so, a key point for our listeners, and again, I'm probably preaching to myself more than anything else, is that the danger of this conversation is not insecurity.
Yeah.
It's operating from insecurity without realizing it.
And I think before this, I don't want to start a controversy here, but before this phrase was
Start a controversy.
before this phrase was hijacked by a movement, I heard this quote and it resonated with me so deeply that the 2 most powerful words in the English language are "me too." That idea that you're not the only person that experiences this, and so often what insecurity does is it isolates us, draws us away from ourselves, right? That need to connect with ourselves, and it draws us away from connecting with others who can really help us leverage some truth about ourselves when we need it
Yeah.
most. And that's why, one, we immediately lead people we're coaching to that space of self-awareness, the honesty, humility, and self-love. Because yes, I am only able to show up with the skills, the tools, the uniqueness of who I am. That's what I get to bring to the table. And sometimes it's going to be enough to get the contract or make the friend or get the deal. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's not. But to be able to then distinguish that that actually doesn't have anything to say about the core of who I am as a person
Yeah.
is how then we start to lead ourselves out of insecurity. We start to lead from confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. When our sense of identity, who
Yeah.
am I, my personal self-worth, my value, when it is tied to performance and results,
Yes.
we begin to play a very dangerous game. And so then our sense of internal significance and value and purpose becomes like a roller coaster. When I'm performing well, then I feel good about myself. When I'm not performing well, I feel terrible about myself. And that, it's a treadmill. It's a never ending journey to overcome those insecurities that we feel internally, when actually, I think we get off the treadmill when we realize that our performance is a reflection of who we are today, but not a reflection of our value today. Right. So like it may be a reflection of skills that we've developed. It may be a reflection of things that we have or have not learned. It may be a reflection of our, just the opportunities to try and learn new things. So let me dial this back, because I want our listeners to hear this. Like, how, if I'm going into, like, I'm going to put myself in the fishbowl for a second. If I'm about to go into a meeting with a prospective client, I think I'm excited. We've not worked with this organization, or we've not worked in this industry. We've not worked at a company this big, or whatever the case is, right? I will feel nervous, and I will feel the weight of those questions of, am I good enough? Do I have what it takes to win these people over and earn the contract, right? And I have plenty of experiences in the past where I have overswung, and I show up and I'm trying to be smarter and bigger and better than I really am. And so now I'm pretending, now I'm putting on a facade. Now I'm trying to project an image of myself that is disconnected from reality. And so what happens is people around me will experience it as inauthentic because now I'm over promising and I'm going to underdeliver. I've also felt the temptation to shrink back. Maybe I don't need to be working with these people. I start already giving myself excuses as to why it's not going to work, why they're not going to want to work with me, why this person won't like me, why I won't win the golf tournament, why I won't succeed in any particular area, right? So those are the two gutters on
Yeah.
either side of the lane of when we talk about like, how do we, instead of avoiding insecurity, pretending like it's not there, circumventing it, overcompensating for it, then what is the solution? And here's exactly what I do and how I coach myself. I practice honesty, humility, and self-love, which sounds a little bit like this. Honesty is having an accurate assessment of who I am today and what I bring to the table today. In other words, an honest and accurate assessment of my best bits and my worst bits, my strengths and my weaknesses, or what we often call our gold and our dirt, right? And we all have both. Humility is about accepting and embracing this is who I am today. It's not who I'm going to be tomorrow or in 6 months or in 6 years. I'm not who I was yesterday, 6 months ago, 6 years ago. Today, this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. I can't be who I wish I was. I can't be who others wish I was. And so embracing and accepting this is who I am today. And that's where we talk about playing our cards and letting the chips fall where they may. This is who I am. I'm going to bring the best of what I have, but I also understand that the cards I play today may not be quote unquote the end. And then self-love is an important part of this because self-love is what gives us permission when we discover that we don't have what it takes in a situation, because we inevitably are going to run into those moments. I mean, I worked with professional athletes where it's like, I didn't score the winning touchdown or didn't score the winning, 3-point shot. I didn't hit the home run or get somebody, to home base. I didn't perform at that level.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
This is our opportunity to give ourselves permission to fail forward, to say, hey, if I did have what it takes, I can celebrate that and learn from that. If I didn't have what it takes, no problem. What is there to learn? How can I grow and develop and become a better version of me tomorrow than I am today? And so these three working together, honesty, humility, and self-love, is how we press into insecurity that allows us to overcome the fears and temptations that get us derailed into either gutter, overcompensation, or shrinking back.
Yep.
Gives us the courage to stay in it, to learn from it, to grow from it, because that is the real win. The real win is not that we're always going to hit it out of the park. The real win is not that we're always going to be successful. The real win is that I can become a better version of myself tomorrow than I am today or yesterday. Is making sense? What are you connecting with?
Yeah, 100%. And I think starting with that awareness is key, but then this is why we then move people into self-leadership, because you can't just stay stuck in the feeling bits. We then have to be able to lead ourselves. We notice what's happening and then we move through it, right? And so talk to us maybe about how do we then, once we've done the noticing, the honesty, the self-love, the humility, how do we move ourselves through that?
Yeah, that's so good.
Let's hone it to this as well.
Yeah. How about this? Because we've given our listeners the pathway. It's honesty, humility, and self-love, right? That's the practice of self-awareness. Let's pause. I want to pause here and share some stories
Okay.
of where we've seen this show up in our lives in leadership. And then I'll come back to and kind of finish with a sense of like, hey, what can our listeners do to deal with and contend with the imposter syndrome?
I love that. I want to start with stories because I have one that just happened yesterday. And I was telling you, Eric, before we hopped on, that it's maybe my single greatest achievement in life, certainly in motherhood. So I have a 13-year-old daughter, which if any of you out there have had 13-year-old daughters, it's a jungle out there, folks.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It's scary time. And we kind of, they're these fragile little birds in some cases that we're releasing into the world that can be a very scary place. And we were walking, my daughter and I, just yesterday, we were walking our dogs, and you know how some of those random parenting conversations come out of absolutely nowhere? My daughter goes, "You know what's kind of cool is that my friends have been asking me this week, they have a text group. How are you so confident?" My daughter's friends were asking her, how is she so confident? And just a little backstory. I was a very unconfident child and teenager. I struggled with lack of confidence a lot. Um, Growing through that and then working with tons of kids and youth over my life, I kind of developed this hypothesis, or this question in parenting Drew and I came up with early on, is what would it look like? Is it possible to raise kids who don't deal with that rampant insecurity that I struggled with as a child and as a teenager? And so to hear my daughter then telling me that her friends are coming to her asking her for advice on how it is that she is able to be so confident, I was like, holy cow. Okay. So I said, Ruby, what did you say to them? And she said, I told them that it's all about self-love. And I was like,
Mm,
okay, tell me more about that. And she said, the reality is, if you love yourself, if you know who you are and you feel good about it, then it really doesn't matter all that much what somebody else has to say about it. And I was like, yeah, yes, that's right. And again, this was just one of those off the cuff moments that I've been reflecting on in the past 24 hours. And I'm like, I have to go back and like mine this a little bit deeper and understand what she's talking about. But she was able to connect her confidence with two things, she told me: self-love and self-care. So when you think about honesty and humility, that's kind of the self-care piece. Taking taking moments of really nurturing yourself, doing that sifting of,
yeah.
here's where I am and here's where I'm not, and that's okay. And then practicing self-love. And from a parenting perspective, I'm like, did we unlock some type of cheat code here?
Yeah.
So I will report back on this, but this is a story that I like, as I was thinking about this episode, I was like, holy cow, this is in real time
Yeah.
working out in the life of my 13-year-old daughter. And how empowering as a young woman to be able to recognize that your confidence does not need to come from a group of friends
Yeah.
or some performance element or a boy. Like, we're literally future proofing this girl. And I'm like, it's my greatest accomplishment.
Uh, yeah. That's a powerful story. It reminds me of something we talk a lot about with our clients, which is we don't realize how much we're living an outside in life versus an inside out life. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is too often we're looking to the world around us to give us the cues that we're okay, that we're good enough, that we're good looking enough, that we're smart enough, that we're successful enough, that we're talented enough, whatever it is. And let me just make sure our listeners understand, like, we want feedback from the world around us,
Yes.
but feedback is to reflect back to us something that we can draw from and do something with, that we're not dependent on that feedback, right? Because that's where we get stuck looking for approval, right? That treadmill of approval. Living from the inside out is where we establish within ourselves, irregardless of what the world around us is feeding back to us, where we establish within ourselves an accurate understanding of who we are, our gold, our dirt, that we accept those, that practice of honesty and humility. It was a powerful thing in my life when I learned um, that there's nobody's opinion on planet Earth as an adult. I'd say it's different for young people, children, and then as they become teenagers, they have to develop this ability that there's nobody's opinion on planet Earth that matters to me more than my own.
Yes.
But when I'm not careful, I allow my view of myself to be determined by other people's view of me or circumstances. And then it undermines my understanding and my view of myself.
That's right.
And so our ability to operate out of confidence and courage, I believe, stems from the clarity, the accuracy with which we see ourselves, and that we are able to make peace with ourselves and practice that self-love, which is not this ooey gooey, I just speak affirmations over myself every day, which, by the way, can be very helpful.
And yeah.
And yet, if we're not careful, even in those affirmations, what we're doing is we're trying to build ourselves up in ways that are disconnected from the authentic reality of who we are. The more we understand who we are, and the more we embrace it, and the more that we operate out of that authenticity, here's what I tell people: that's where your authority and power comes from.
That's right.
Your
That's
superpowers and all that you bring to the world is unlocked when we operate from that posture.
yes. You become the most intriguing person in the room because it is so difficult sometimes and so tenuous, even as adults, for us to be able to unlock that reality. When you do it, you become the most attractive person in the room. And Brene Brown says it this way, and this is like a life credo for me. It is more important what your life feels like from the inside than what it looks like from the outside. And we often get those really flipped.
Yeah.
But man, is it true.
Yeah, that's so good. Again, that inside out versus outside in. That's a great way to say it. I'll share a quick story of something I've experienced recently working with a client whose company was acquired by a larger company. And he was invited to stay on for a couple of years to help the business continue to grow. But in the transition, went from being his own boss to now having a boss, from running a company to being an employee in a company, from being the one who got to determine and create and shape the culture to now having to adopt and embrace and acclimate to a new culture. There's so many, even physical space. He's had to move to a new office. He's had to report to different people. Like, his time isn't his own as it was before. So many changes and transitions. And one of the things that this individual was sharing with me was how insecure they felt. So, Eric, for years, I've been the one who has made these decisions and determined these factors. And now I'm having to acclimate to a new environment and I feel insecure. I'm not sure. Like I thought I was awesome, but now I've got somebody looking over my shoulder to give me feedback all the time on whether I'm performing well. And, and now all of a sudden I'm accountable for things that before I only held myself accountable for. It just drove this tremendous amount of insecurity. And then obviously as the parent company now is looking into the finances and the infrastructure and the supply chain realities and how this business has been run, and they're finding chinks in the armor, again, exposing his deficiencies as a leader over the previous years. And so as all this insecurity is bubbling up, he started to act out. He's telling me this, of course, which is amazing. He starts acting out. He starts becoming defensive. He's blaming people. He's pointing fingers, he's throwing people under the bus. And so part of our journey together in our coaching sessions was, hey, if you want to continue to operate out of that posture, number one, it's going to kill you because it will just drive you insane. And number two, you will be increasingly a liability to this new organization and team. Yeah. And so we went on the journey of just literally, all right, we're going to practice self-awareness. We're going to practice honesty, humility, and self-love. And it was amazing to me, but not uncommon. And I'm sure our listeners can relate to this, how often he struggled to give himself credit for all the great things he did as a leader of this organization. All the battles he went through, all the victories they won, all the breakthroughs that they achieved. He had such a hard time giving himself credit for those things. And then oftentimes either overplayed or underplayed his deficiencies. So it's like had a hard time recognizing and acknowledging the gold, had a difficult time recognizing and acknowledging the dirt. But as we just week after week pressed in, and I just kept inviting him into this space of brutal honesty. Hey, some of it's going to look great, some of it's not going to look great. But here's the good news. To the degree that you can see it, you can accept it. To the degree that you can accept it, guess what? Now you have an opportunity to celebrate the gold. You have an opportunity to turn the dirt into something better if you're willing to practice self-love, you're willing to learn, you're willing to fail forward. And that's all we have as human beings.
That's
That's
right.
all we have is who we are today, for better or for worse, and an opportunity to become a better version of ourselves. And that is what drives confidence. It took probably 2.5, 3 months of practicing this before he started showing up with a greater freedom to celebrate the gold and greater honesty and acceptance of the dirt. And then now all of a sudden he's on a journey of saying, okay, you know what? I know what I bring to the table. I know the areas I need to grow in. Let's be on that journey. And I have watched his levels of confidence like skyrocket as he realizes I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to lose. If as long as I'm not pretending I'm something I'm not, I've got nothing to lose. Because you can't take anything away from me because I know what I have and I know what I don't have. So now I just have freedom to celebrate what I have and to grow and develop in the areas that I'm deficient.
I love that story. And I want to zoom in on one piece that you said, that you invited him to practice this over the course of
Yeah.
2-3 months. This is not an injection of self-confidence. This is a practice that we have to return to when we feel those things start to creep in. Because even as what I would consider a very confident adult, I experience these same feelings from time to time. They start creeping in from new areas. And it is a practice to return to so that I can live in that freedom again, where I am not defined by what I consider my failings, my deficiencies, and I'm not, as you say, overswinging in the areas that I feel confident in.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Stevie. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if people learn to practice what we're talking about, it doesn't happen overnight, but when we learn to cultivate within ourselves honesty, humility, and self-love, it really does grow into a quality self-confidence that is unmistakable
Yeah.
in our world, because we live in a world where people are generally operating as takers. We're operating at deep levels of insecurity, and people feel it, right? It's like everybody's playing the same game of how do I get what I want to make me feel better at your expense. And when you show up and you into any space and you're able to operate as a giver because you're operating out of that internal security
Yeah.
and confidence, it, like you said, it's not only attractive to other people, but it stands out. It gives you a competitive advantage in any context, which is amazing. So for our listeners, just practically speaking,
Yeah.
what can we do today? I would recommend just try to identify one area of your life where you're showing up and you know you feel insecurity or imposter syndrome or some temptation to shrink back or overcompensate. Identify that area, right? We've got to practice honesty here. And then in that space, ask the question, what is the gold that I bring to this space? And what is the dirt that I bring to this space? And I would even challenge our listeners to make a list, just draw a line right down the middle of a page. And in this particular area, what's the gold? What's the dirt? And if you can't name stuff on both sides, this is where we get to find trusted friends, allies, mentors, significant others to say, hey, can you help me identify the gold and dirt that I may be bringing to this situation? And then to practice humility, which is to celebrate the gold, to know what we bring to the table, but to recognize the dirt and to acknowledge that those are areas of deficiency or that require growth. And then to practice self-love, to say, hey, I can bring who I am to this space and give myself permission that if I am deficient, that I do get to fail forward. I do get to learn from this and become a better version of myself. And like we always say, we want feedback, but the feedback that we want is the feedback that helps us see ourselves more authentically, honestly, clearly, so that we can operate out of that quality of authenticity.
That's right. And I think the beauty of this practice is that we then don't have to pretend that we never wrestle with self-doubt.
Yeah.
Work then becomes learning how to lead ourselves through it, as you said, with the right tools, with the right support, and with the clarity that then helps us grow instead of be defined by our deficiencies and spiral.
What about this? What if we redefine success not as performance outcomes, which leads to that outside in life? What if instead we redefine success as seizing the opportunities to become a better version of ourselves? Because becoming a better version of ourselves through honesty, humility, and self-love will drive greater performance and outcomes.
Right.
That's the natural byproduct. That's an inside out life. And so I do think it's worth just considering this, like, reframing of success is that every day I'm becoming a better version of myself versus did I accomplish this? Did I achieve this? Did I get the performance outcomes that I was looking for? Those matter, but those are simply indicators of what's going on internally.
Yeah,
What if
they're
we
symptoms.
yeah, they're symptoms. And the systemic dynamic is where all that flows from is what's going on internally for us. To all of our wonderful listeners out there, by the way, just want to say we've been getting tons of feedback. We've been getting people dropping notes on our podcast pages,
Yeah.
sending us stuff through social media channels, just letting us know how much they're enjoying the podcast. I couldn't be more excited. If we're helping people out there to overcome their challenges, to become a better version of them, to lead more effectively in every area of their life, then we are ecstatic. Thanks for being with us today. If this episode has been helpful for you, please pass it on to someone else who might need to hear this message. And next week, we're going to be diving into the weight of leadership. And there is a significant weight to leadership and what to do when it feels like we're carrying it all alone. Till next time.